So as I discussed here in this content, this video was recorded prior and I hadn't done the Git pod IO setup for cloud. So I thought what I'd do is just give you just a brief description of how you do this on Git pod, although I think it's basically the same. And just the little things I ran into on Git pod, but this video should stand on its own and still worth watching. So I'm going to move over to my private repo where I have already set up that folder structure that I demoed. So under JS Bootcamp, I created a basics and then I moved that app.js into basics. And then at the same level, and the way you can see that it's the same level, if I roll this up, you can see if I drop JS Bootcamp in that folder, there is an index file, and in basics, there's the JS file. And the reason I do this is for students going forward, I would like them to move to the browser sooner rather than later. And I think this is just a good way because then you can just change what I'm about to show you in the index file. But as I created my index file, as I showed in the video, and I went to do that fun little command, that exclamation point tab, I noticed for my particular setup, it wasn't working. And it took me a minute to figure out why. So if you run into this, I just want to show you one of the techniques that I do when I can't get something to work that I know should work. And now you know it should work. And if it doesn't, I start Googling. There's two things. Start Googling, right? So I Googled and in it is the actual name of the command not working on VS Code. And I found this fun little thing that showed me, oh, if it's not working, go into your settings file. And I remembered, oh, that's right. There's this little settings.json file. Here's what you do in VS Code. Let me just minimize this. You come in here, and in this gear in the bottom, you'll find settings. And then what you can do is just search for, in this case, it's a little, this is so popularly used in web development because it creates shortcuts for you to use. And you'll see it in the other video and you'll see me about to do it here. And what I noticed as I was scrolling through here, everything looked okay until I got to where when it triggered the item, actually I had to click on here, sorry, scrolled through here. And when I found that I got to the tab, because the tab is what triggers it, that mine was not enabled for some crazy reason. I don't know why. It should have been because I use it all the time. But if for you, you check that out. If when you hit tab now, so exclamation point tab should create that base document for HTML. So you don't have to write all that code because why write it if you don't have to? I'm going to type script. I'm going to type source. Now here's where I'm going to go ahead and reference this app.js, okay? Now in this case, it's actually under basics, okay? App.js, and notice what the editor is doing. It's actually trying to help me because, I'm showing you this structure because I think going forward, it's a good way to do it. And understand that because it's in that folder and you reference it here, when you're telling your index file, hey, here's my JS file, you just need to reference it if it's not in the same directory, a very common practice in web development. Okay, so now that this is all here, in the other video, I showed you how you could just open the file, but we're working in a workspace that's out on the cloud, so I can't really do that. But what you can do actually here, and I think this will work fine, we'll play with it. If I go to extensions like I showed, there actually is a live server and I went ahead and enabled it. Okay, so if I click into it, actually I already have it. If it shows when you install it, and by the way, you're only installing this out on the cloud, I enabled it, which means the only option I now have is to disable it. So once you see this disabled, it's kind of weird, it's enabled, okay, as if that's not weird enough. But here's what you can also see is that it is actually installed in my system. So how do I use it now? Okay, like I did in the other video, there's this cool little thing on the bottom that just says run live server. I think, let's just see if it works. Let's see if this first time, if it just my Mac's trying to take over. If I click it, it's going to start it. Boom, I have that. And now everything I showed you in the other video is true. Right click, drop into here, go into the console. You just got to find it. Here it is. Okay. See all this other stuff. Let's see, 404. Let's see if it actually did do. I go back and look real quick. Let me just reload real quick because maybe the first time it happened. Oh, there it is. So there's the message that I wrote in the console.log to do that. Okay. So that is everything I showed in the other video, but showing it in the more context of actually doing it inside of uh, Git pod.io. But let me end with this. One of the great things about Git pod is actually Node's already here. You don't have to install it if I do node dash dash version. Okay. It's actually a very current version of Node, which is awesome. So here's my suggestion for even any of you that are here is that I recommend the sooner the better you start outputting to the browser. But I also know that in this first real section we're going to end up doing that you'll see Andrew do this. So I just want you to know how to do it. So if I wanted to run this app.js file, I'd have to be in the correct directory. So pwd. I'm in that. I can actually see that just by looking here. And let me just make this a little bigger. I could do ls to say list the files. I see it there. If I wasn't in the correct directory, then I could do cd basics, right, and get in there. And then I could see I was in that directory. And I could just type node app.js. And then I would see just that output of there. And you might wonder, Ria, why are you having us do it here? Because the power of DevTools, and the sooner you go to the browser, the better, because it's really what you learn JavaScript to write. Okay. All right. I hope this adds on top of what we already covered. I'll just put it below. So those of you on Gitpod will have the answers to how do you do this on Gitpod. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.